finance complaint, not an elections protest, so that would be actually decided on by the State Board of Elections.
Right.
Not this board anyway, and they are aware that this complaint has been forwarded to them. That's accurate, right, Susan?
Yes,
So,
that's accurate. It was forwarded on the day that we received it, which would have been May 23rd.
Well, I have, and first let me say to my colleagues and to everybody, I'm really glad we're using these election protest forms, because I think that's a much better mechanism than sending emails or coming by the office. I think is what the law contemplates. By the same token, I'm starting to get the feeling that these election protest forms are kind of being abused a little bit, either by deluging us with campaign finance issues or duplicative issues. So I have a motion to declare this protest frivolous under the North Carolina Administrative Code 8 NCAC 2.0109, and for everybody's ease, including the folks at the end of the table, I have a written motion that, that's it. Here, there's one more for, because I think that will help us get down to solving protests that are really things that we can fix here in our county, and will save time for the professional staff, save time for us. So I would ask the folks on the board to take a look at this motion.
well, I have to tell you, Jonathan, that I don't know that I don't think that we need to, first of all, if the statutes, and we've had this discussion before, but if the statutes that are in fact being violated or are believed to have been violated are listed, then the complainant has provided the information that they're supposed to. In this instance, however, the complaint wasn't filed in a timely fashion, so it doesn't constitute a campaign a campaign protest anyway, or an elections protest anyway. And in addition to that, it's already been forwarded to the state board. They're aware of it, and it's actually within their purview to rule on the validity of this complaint, not ours. So,
which is a wonderful point. Why does somebody untimely file a protest, file it with an entity that can't rule on it, and among other things, asks for an award of damages to candidates and asks that people not be able to provide insurance service to Lee County Public Schools? I have cited the sanction statute in my motion, and there is no sanction that this board can impose or that the State Board of Election could impose to award damages to Mr. Staley, a political party, or a candidate. We have no authority over who does or does not get to sell insurance to the Lee County schools. And in my mind, it's frivolous to file a protest. Now, Mr. Staley certified he read the statute. If you read the statute, you would not ask any board to do things they're not authorized to do. What purpose could there be for that?
whether or not a person might or might not ask that, again, is irrelevant because this has been forwarded to the State Board of Elections, and they're the ones who have to review and decide on it. And as to whether or not there are any remedies or sanctions provided by the law book, again, that would be something that they would determine. I will not support a motion suggesting that it's a frivolous complaint because it needs to be forwarded as it has been to the State Board for them, for their determination and their consideration.
So Mr. Staley can keep filing complaints anytime he wants.
Any person in the county can file a complaint as long as...
They protest anytime he wants, ask for anything he wants, and we've got to come here, and the Sanford Herald's got to run an article, and the staff has to sit here, and people have to come and sit here because somebody wants to file a protest anytime they want.
Jonathan, anytime any citizen of this county has what they believe to be a legitimate complaint, it is our obligation to be here and to hear their complaint. And if we don't want to do that or don't feel like we have the time, then we probably shouldn't be sitting sitting on this
And-
board.
Well, I
And
don't
it's-
think that was what he
Yeah.
meant. I
No,
don't
it's
think that's
our
what-
obligation to declare people who are wasting our time and the time of this board, the time of the citizens, and taking away time from our legitimate functions frivolous. And you have a motion.
I hadn't had a chance to read it yet. Okay, as I see your motion, it's that Mr. Staley has filed multiple protests involving allegations against Sean Williams or his campaign and making the same allegation multiple times concerning sample ballots, and that we dismiss those complaints.
That's correct.
And that in the May 23rd, in his May 23rd, 2012 reported protest, he admitted that the alleged conduct was not sufficient to have affected or cast doubt upon the results of the protested election, calling into question his motives for attempting to untimely protest alleged conduct, and that he admits had no prejudicial effect, that he has attached election results to his protest despite his admission that there was no prejudicial effect on the election, that he has, among other things, requested an award of damages to candidates Paul Gay allegedly opposed, and that Paul B. Gay Insurance lose the right to provide insurance service to Lee County Public Schools. These sanctions are not available to Lee County Board of Election or State Board of Election, and that he has incorrectly alleged that he seeks action as set out under the general statutes. He's also alleged that he has read and reviewed the North Carolina law pertaining to election protests. And Mr. Staley's purported protest has unnecessarily diverted time and resources of the County Board of Election. And so, it is moved that Charles Staley's purported election protest on May 23rd, 2012 be declared frivolous in nature and were filed in bad faith, and the same be dismissed. It is additionally moved that Charles Staley be admonished to conform his conduct and protests in all future proceedings with North Carolina insurance statutes. Is that your motion?
That is my motion.
Do you have a second?
Not for me, you know.
I second it. All in favor say
In
aye.
the discussion after the second.
Do you have more to say about it?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Number one, in regard to the complaint against Sean Williams, we did deem that complaint to be a valid complaint. So that does not go, in my opinion, in support of a series of frivolous lawsuits. Number two, the North Carolina statutes provides for the fact that if a complaint is indeed filed in an untimely fashion, the State Board of Elections still has the authority to make the decision to hear that case or decide on that case. So just by virtue of the fact that a complaint is filed late doesn't mean that it can't be heard, because the law provides otherwise.
Can't be heard by this board.
No, it can't be heard by this board, but it can still be heard. We also received an email from the State Board of Elections which tells us that while they assume that since this board, they assume that our board will dismiss the protest as being untimely and not in the nature of an election protest, but a campaign finance complaint. It also says your board, after dismissing it as an elections protest, can state they have already forwarded the forwarded the complaint to the campaign finance division of our agency to be investigated as a possible campaign finance violation. So I think we were all already aware that it was filed in an untimely fashion. The State Board of Elections is aware of it, and According to Don Wright, he said, "I am assuming that the campaign finance will assign this to a staff member and they will be in touch with you." So they've already taken charge of this. They've already made a decision, whatever decision they've made, whether it's to look into it or to notify Mr. Staley otherwise. But I don't think that we should send a message to any citizen that if they have legitimate concerns, that they don't have the right to file them in front of this body. In addition to that, whether or not a purported campaign finance violation affected the outcome of the election doesn't mean that it wasn't an actual violation. I'm not saying it was a violation. I'm saying that it could legitimately be a violation, and that's for the state board to determine, not us. So to say that a complaint is frivolous when we don't even have the ability to determine whether or not it's legitimate, because they have to hear it because it's a campaign violation, campaign finance violation is not the right thing to do. So
It was filed late in the form of an election protest.
which we provided him the form. We're the ones who
We're
told
not,
him
no,
that was
we're
Provide
not
him with the
providing the
forms.
forms. We don't tell anybody what they're
Did
supposed
any,
to do.
has a person ever come into this office and said, "I want to file a complaint, I need a form"? They have, right? And what form
I
do
don't
we give
know.
them?
I don't know if they have or not.
If
I'm
someone
not
comes
here.
into your office and says, "I need a form to file a complaint," do we give them the form, Nancy?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, we would give them the form. So if we're gonna give somebody the wrong form and they fill it out, I hardly think we can hold them responsible for
But
it.
we didn't know it was the wrong form.
Well, whether or not we knew it was the wrong form, how can we expect John Q. Public to know it's the wrong form if we don't even know?
Well,
We don't
John Q.
necessarily
Public
know.
No.
was the chairman of the Republican Party in this county.
And
He has filed
the full-time
multiple-
staff didn't know it was the
He
wrong form,
has
Jonathan.
filed multiple protests
And just
that
because
were
you file multiple,
non-meritorious, and
just because you file multiple protests, number one, doesn't render them all non-meritorious.
well, so
The
far they've
law
been.
provides for the State Board of Elections to have the authority to rule on something, even if it's submitted late. So again, the law doesn't discredit a complaint just because it's handed in late. It just takes the authority for ruling on that complaint away from the county board and hands it to the state board. So again, not a valid argument for a frivolous complaint.
But if a protest that has to do with the election has to do with whether or not it's going to have affected the outcome of the election. And on the face of his protest, he has already said that it doesn't have any effect on the outcome of
And
the
that's
election.
because that is a standard question on the standard form that Mr. Staley was provided from our office as being the correct form to file a complaint.
Now-
He was also told in previous complaints that he had to answer every question. So it asked that question, do you believe it had an impact on the outcome of the election? If the answer is no, then obviously a person's going to answer no. Again, that doesn't render their argument or their complaint frivolous.
And how are you, what damages are you or the state going to award?
Again,
Okay.
Jonathan,
What are you going to do?
I have already said that this has been handed to the State Board of Elections for them to make a determination. I support fully dismissing this complaint at the county level. It has already been forwarded to the state. I will not support any vote rendering it or naming it a frivolous complaint because I don't think that's the right thing to do. I wouldn't do it to any member of the public sitting here today. I don't think it's right. Every person here has a right to file a complaint when they fill out the necessary forms and provide the necessary documentation. We don't have the authority to rule on this. It's a campaign finance complaint that has already been forwarded to the state. And according to the state themselves, we should, in effect, dismiss this complaint as not being an elections protest.
Well, that's in accordance with the statute that we should dismiss.
And I
Granted
support
that-
dismissing it.
Nancy, whenever people come in and they say they want to file a complaint, do they tell you what the substance of their complaint is, or that they just want to file a complaint?
Not always. They just want to file a complaint, and I give them the form, and they fill it out.
And this is this is a protest of the elections form. Correct.
It is, but as you know, it was part of the package that we put, that the state put together, and now they're saying that it's not the correct form, so I don't know, we don't have another form.
Well, I do think that having I mean, Mr. Staley has already said that he's already sent this to the state on May 7th.
And we also sent it to the state, so if
We didn't,
Jonathan Silverman, if you wish to amend your complaint, simply dismiss this complaint as not being a timely.
No, I have zero interest in this. We're going to bring this to a head. And folks, folks may want to protest by burning torches and crosses in front of this building before this is all over. But I'm not going to be party to that.
If they choose to do that, and that's their right, then let them light up.
Well,
That's
I'm not
fine,
going to be
Jonathan,
party, and
but
that's
it's
why I'm
not
not
a.
going to be party to lawlessness. So,
Okay, this isn't lawlessness. This is a citizen of this county filing a complaint that they have a right to file. And we do not have the authority to rule on it,
Well-
except to dismiss it.
well, so you're saying then that he has the right to file asking for things that the statute doesn't allow him to ask
I'm
for?
saying he has the right to file a complaint. If he asks for things that the law doesn't provide for, then obviously those things can't be granted.
Well, you know why? There's a provision in there that makes people say, I've read the law to prevent
Jonathan,
frivolous
if every
things.
person has the ability to read and understand every aspect of the law, tell me, why do you spend thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to go to law school? Seems to me like it's not necessary if everybody can just read the law and understand it.
Shannon, a more sophisticated entity would go get a lawyer. The Republican Party has elected not to get a lawyer. I don't know why, but if they want to wage campaign finance battles, they're either going to do it according to the law or they're going to get called out on it. Same for Democrats, same for
Well,
independents.
if we tell them that they have to fill out this form and they have to submit it, and they have to also name the statutes that they allege have been violated, and they have done that, then they have submitted the complaint. Obviously, the complaint is they were supposed to. If they don't file it in a timely fashion, as this one was not filed in a timely fashion, then our recourse is to dismiss it. It has already been forwarded to the state, and it is within their purview to rule on it or not as they see fit.
Well, at the top of this, it says, use this form as required by GS 163-182.9C. And if you look at 182.9, this tells them what the timing of filing a protest shall be.
I
And
understand that.
so if they,
But a person still might choose to file a
You
protest.
ignore the law.
A person might choose, a person might, knowing that the state has the authority to rule on something, even if it's not filed in a timely fashion at the county level, might still choose to file a complaint. Do you not see that as,
they can file
Being a
all the
possibility.
complaints they want to with
Rollins.
Rollins.
Send them all.
But not with us. This is, the election year is over with.
that's, and again, I would
no,
support
it ain't.
dismissing this. And I would actually also say that your complaint has wasted more time than Mr. Staley's, because all we had to do was just vote it was not filed in a timely fashion and dismiss it, and we would have been done 20 minutes ago.
Maybe you should move the sanction motion.
Well, maybe you should withdraw your motion, and I'll move that we
I'm not
dismiss this
withdrawing the motion.
complaint.
And I heard a second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no.
No.
Okay. Vote is 2-1.
As usual.
The protest is dismissed.
And what is the proper form of an appeal?
An appeal of this, then you'll have to get you a lawyer and figure it out, Mr. Staley. We're not going to sit here and tell, that's not our job. Our job is to try to enforce the law.
The
And
complaint itself, I'm so sorry, the complaint itself has already been forwarded to the state, and it's there, they have the authority to rule on it anyway. This board doesn't have the authority to rule on a campaign finance complaint. So,
Not for that purpose, for his motion purpose.
for his motion,
Mm-hmm.
get your lawyer and figure it out.
Okay.
Any,
And I have another motion.
you just-
On here, and this is a food for thought motion as we move forward. We have some of the staff. This is a motion to, since we're meeting, I don't know that we need to do anything tonight, but I'd like to start generating discussion. This is a motion to determine procedures to ensure fair, safe, secure, and honest November 2012 general election. And what I did in this motion was cite out different portions of 163, which imposes requirements on chief judges, and this board to basically provide safe, secure, and fair polling places